Okay, so Manchester's had this massive growth spurt recently. If you've not visited lately, then images like these might shock you. The transformation of the city in recent years has been nothing short of seismic. More than 500,000 more people now call this place home compared to the year 2000. Entire neighbourhoods have been revitalised and skyscrapers are popping up everywhere. But all that growth has created a few issues. Traffic is almost always backed up, the city's rail network, mostly built by the Victorians, has been underfunded for years, and while the tram network is decent if you're lucky enough to live near a stop, it's quickly becoming an inadequate solution for a city region with 3 million people. And this rapid growth hasn't been met with adequate improvements to public transport. And now there's a danger that the city's growth could hit a ceiling, which would be bad for the rest of the UK. Because this isn't just about Manchester. The whole country is made poorer due to the government's continued reluctance to build decent public transport networks in our largest cities. That's been highlighted as one of the key reasons that the UK's economy is stagnating. So in summer 2024, Manchester's mayor revealed this. It's the city's plan to transform its transport network into something worthy of the city's size and ambition. It plans a monumental expansion of the tram network, highlights rail lines which could be taken into public control as early as 2028, and proposes a new underground network as well. This underground would be underpinned by 3 new tunnels through the city centre. One on a north-east to south-west axis, another running south-east to north-west, presumably with an interchange station in the middle, and a third running north to south with interchanges to the other lines at Victoria and Piccadilly. Now all of these are assumptions. The strategy is incredibly stingy on detail at this stage, but reading between the lines it's possible to make a good guess as to what this future transport network might look like. Starting with the northwest to southeast tunnel, which cuts to the heart of the main issue facing Manchester's rail network currently, and is a key reason why this plan has been drawn up in the first place. There's already a northwest to southeast rail axis in Manchester. It's called the Castlefield corridor and it channels trains from across northern England through the heart of the city. As such, it's a significant bottleneck to the region's rail network, which causes knock-on effects that impact trains across northern England, and is one of only 3 sections of railway in the UK that is officially recognised as congested and in need of significant investment. Now, usually when a section of railway is congested, it gets an additional pair of tracks alongside to help with the pressure. But that's just not possible with the Castlefield corridor. As it cuts through the heart of the city, there are buildings, some of which are listed, built right up to the side of the track. So transport planners have clearly concluded that duplicating the route with the tunnel is the best way forward to ease congestion and reduce delays across northern England's rail network. And in terms of where this tunnel might go, the strategy hints that trains from Bolton or Wigan would be diverted through the tunnel, avoiding the Castlefield corridor and running through and under the city centre to connect with the lines to the airport and Stockport. Alleviating these trains from this congested railway helps free up capacity on the busiest bit of track in northern England. So the tunnel itself would only be about 3.5 kilometres or just over 2 miles long. I imagine a tunnel entrance somewhere here in Salford, where the lines to Bolton and Wigan converge. And on the other side of the city it would perhaps emerge roughly here, where it can connect with the lines running south. It goes without saying that Piccadilly itself, Manchester's principal station, would be linked into the new underground network. While it's already a national rail hub, there are also proposals to extend high-speed rail here. And Piccadilly is proposed as a key hub on the plans to build a new main line across northern England from Liverpool to Leeds. And each of these projects propose some sort of passive provision for an underground station here. I should be clear that this isn't going to be a metro tunnel in the normal sense. This is a tunnel to run national rail services through, so it would be more like London's Elizabeth line than, say, the Northern line. As such, underground stations will be eye-wateringly expensive. On average, Elizabeth line stations cost up to £500 million each to build. So if Manchester did something similar, they'd have to limit the number of underground stations. But Piccadilly is enough of a connection and a destination to justify one. After Piccadilly, the line continues underneath the city centre. I'm guessing they'd want an interchange with the other proposed rail tunnel somewhere in the heart of the city. And a lot of uneducated guesswork puts an interchange station somewhere around Spinningfields. And after this, the line continues underground into Salford. A station somewhere around Oldfield Road would create a really useful interchange with other national rail services, such as the line to Liverpool. It then emerges into the open air at Salford Crescent, where it takes over the existing rail lines out to Bolton and/or Wigan. And building this one tunnel would take loads of trains off the crowded Castlefield corridor and would mean more trains could run on the wider network, with benefits being felt across Northern England. So even if your local station isn't directly connected, or even if you don't live in Manchester, you'll probably still see benefits. The second tunnel proposed in the strategy is intended to solve another capacity problem in central Manchester, this time with the trams. Manchester's tram network, or Metrolink, had pretty humble beginnings, starting life in the early 90s, when a short section of tramway was built through the city centre, enabling former commuter rail lines to Altrincham and Bury to be joined up, creating a small network. Over time, more branches have been added, and it's now a pretty comprehensive system, the largest light rail network in the country. The problem is this section of track between St Peter's Square and Cornbrook, which most of the network is funnelled through. It currently carries 40 trams per hour at peak, roughly one every minute and a half, but its total capacity is 45 trams per hour, so what's the problem? Well, passenger numbers have soared alongside the city's growth. It's the busiest light rail network outside London, and it's consistently hitting record passenger numbers. There's a need for more frequent services on some of the branches, but this isn't possible due to the capacity issue between Cornbrook and St Peter's Square. There's nowhere feasible to run another tram line through the dense and congested heart of the city, and so the Mayor's plan calls for a second tunnel. This would be a light rail metro tunnel, more like the one in Newcastle. It would be set on a southwest to northeast axis, connecting the above ground lines to Bury, Altrincham or East Didsbury. I imagine we'd see underground stations built at Victoria, Deansgate and maybe Cornbrook, as well as a station around Spinningfields to provide an interchange with the other proposed tunnel. The strategy states that this would allow for longer, more frequent metro trains to run on these lines, which are currently the busiest on the tram network. It also opens the possibility of new metro lines out to Warrington and Rochdale via Moston, as well as extensions to Stockport and Hazel Grove. But this new tunnel would even benefit tram lines which won't be converted to underground metro. That's because the capacity opened up through the middle of the city could be used to provide higher frequencies on existing lines, such as the ones to Salford Quays and Eccles, the airport, Trafford Centre and East Manchester. And it could also unlock new tram lines, such as the proposed extension to Port Salford, the completion of the Wythenshawe Loop through Manchester Airport, a new line up to Middleton, a shuttle between Salford Quays and Salford Crescent, a new line to Wigan via Atherton which could open the possibility of branches to Lee and Bolton, and a massive eastward extension which would see trams running to Glossop, Hadfield and Rose Hill on what are currently underserved commuter rail lines. Having this mix of trams and underground could, in my opinion, give Manchester a transport network that is as good as, if not better than, London's. Trams are great because the stations are closer together, providing more door-to-door connectivity, while underground lines are great because they're quicker and can whisk you across the city quickly. Working in tandem with plenty of interchanges, they provide a transit network that is accessible, quick and convenient. And then, in summer 2025, TfGM revealed their rapid transit strategy, which highlighted that even with all of these improvements to the network, there would still be two huge gaps in the city's rail system. Namely this whole area in North Manchester and this whole area in South Manchester, which are also some of the city's most high-density areas. So they're now proposing a third tunnel running north to south. Starting at the airport where it connects to existing tram and rail services, it runs north underground to University Hospital South Manchester. Then beneath the southern suburbs of the city, basically following Oxford Road. It would connect to the various hospitals and universities in this area before running beneath the city centre and connecting both Piccadilly and Victoria stations. Once through the city centre, it continues underground, potentially via North Manchester General Hospital, and then resurfaces in these fields to the north of the city, which is where the Atom Valley development is proposed as an urban extension, bringing 20,000 new jobs and 7,000 new homes, a plan which would be unlocked by this direct access to the city centre, universities and airport. From there, it could also continue overground and connect up to Bury, Haywood or Rochdale, which would help support people and businesses in those areas too. I'm imagining it being similar to London's Victoria line. It would slash journey times from North to South Manchester and connect people to hundreds of thousands of jobs, as well as hospitals, universities and the airport, delivering a step change for the region's economy. Clearly a project of this size would take many decades to complete, and many of us might not even be alive to see it. But it's important for cities to have these long-term plans bubbling away in the background. It's a sign of confidence and ambition. But back in the 2020s, a long-standing criticism of Manchester's existing rail network is that it's too focused on the city centre. As with many hub and spoke systems, while travelling into the city centre from the suburbs is easy, if you want to travel from one suburb to another, you generally have to go through the city centre. And that only creates more car dependency in far-flung suburban areas. But the strategy has a plan for that too. See, Manchester is blessed with a lot of railways. It was the site of the world's first passenger railway, which opened in 1830 and gave the city somewhat of a head start. But industrial decline in the 20th century left a lot of these lines underutilised or closed altogether. Now that the city is very much not in decline again, the plan is to bring some of these lines back into regular passenger use. Many of them have already been revived via the tram, like the line through Chorlton and Didsbury, which sat abandoned just 15 years ago. Yet now they're so popular that transport planners are already talking about upgrading it to a metro line. Talk about a turnaround. To create a more orbital rail network, the strategy is drawing on 3 separate underutilised rail lines in the south, east and north of the city. In the north, the line between Bury and Rochdale is currently used only by heritage trains, but the strategy calls to upgrade it to a tram train line and run services all the way to Oldham, providing an orbital connection between 3 of Greater Manchester's largest towns. In the east, there's a rail line between Stalybridge and Stockport, which currently sees a parliamentary service of only 1 train per week. So the strategy plans to link this up with the existing network at Ashton and run a more regular orbital service down to Stockport. At Stockport, it could connect with another proposed orbital line, the one to Altrincham, which is already in passenger use but doesn't have a frequent service. Using this line might open the possibility of a direct orbital service to Manchester Airport from both Ashton and Stockport. Needless to say, all of this would be transformative for Greater Manchester, and would ensure that the city keeps growing and adds further value to the wider UK economy. Of course, it would cost a lot of money, but like the Elizabeth line and other transport improvements in London, it would undoubtedly pay for itself and more over the long term. With ambitious, forward-looking plans like this, I believe the UK can grow out of its current economic malaise. As a country, we need to start seeing these sorts of plans as investments rather than costs. And I hope other cities in the UK can also get funding for their own massive transport improvements, especially Leeds, which is still the largest city in Europe without a tram or metro network. Now, if you're feeling a little bit lost with all of these plans and lines and stations and everything, I get it. That's why I've created a mock future Manchester Metro map showing all of these proposals in one place to help you better visualise the plans, and how Manchester's rail and transport network could look if all of these plans come together. They're very much my interpretation of the plans, they're not the official plans, they're just my guess on how they might look and where stations might be built, so take it with a pinch of salt. As well as my passion for cities and architecture, I'm also a bit of a transport map geek, so I had a lot of fun creating this. The colours I picked for the core tram network are a nod to the original Manchester tram map, which anyone who lived there in the early 2000s will remember this map. So I borrowed those colours for the 2 original tram lines through the city centre. And these hexagons are a reference to the B branding, which has come to represent transport in Manchester in recent years. There's a link in the description if you want to see the map for yourself, and please do feel free to share it. Now, do I think that all of these proposed lines will actually materialise? Probably not. The UK has struggled with big infrastructure projects in the past, and this can slow down big schemes like this one. But improvements like this are a licence to print money for a local economy. Look at the impact the Elizabeth line has already had. It's paid for itself twice over in terms of economic benefits, and it's only been fully open for 3 years. Now, Manchester is already growing rapidly. I covered this in my previous video, which I'll link in the description. Supporting that growth through investment like this would strengthen it further, and could help power the UK's economy. It goes without saying that other UK cities should also get similar levels of investment to further propel the UK and ensure that our cities are able to compete on the global stage in the 21st century. As always, please let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.